Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to Untold. Um, Last couple of days have been very busy. I was in south of Florida with my family, also spending time with friends, and working very hard on my new website that is supposed to be launching this week. So stay tuned for that. But today, this Sunday, we return to the podcast. Today's guest is Yana Michukova. She's the author of Beyond Linear, which is where she explores how humans will continue to thrive in an AI first world, and also where she writes stories about real people who have shifted their careers in big tech to follow their passion. Her Substack dives into what it means to be human in an era of rapid technological change. But before this, Yana was a principal product manager at Stripe. For over a decade, she led teams of over 20 engineers in machine learning based solutions and built products that serve millions of users at both Stripe and Lyft. And only a few weeks back, she left her tech role based on the belief that personal growth stands on the other side of that frightened yet excited feeling. The conversation was extremely insightful. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. And with that said, this is my episode with Yana. Hey, Yana, thank you so much for finding the time, and I really appreciate you being here. In order for the audience to know more or less who you are, I would love for you to give them a little bit of an introduction into you and what's your background. So, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, thanks so for having me, Nicholas. Really great to be here. A little bit of me. I'm Yana. I am ex-principal product manager at Stripe. Prior to that, I spent the whole career in tech, pretty much working as a product manager. Actually, last week, I left Stripe to discover what is what is in the world beyond big tech, because I think we're living in a very, very interesting moment when building stuff is super exciting and easier than ever. So yes, I left my big tech career. I started my newsletter about non-linear career path the same day I left, pretty much. It's called Beyond Linear. And yeah, I'm now figuring out what's next.
Nice. Thanks for that quick intro. And yeah, congrats on launching the newsletter. That's how I found you a few weeks ago in Substack. Pretty interesting, and that's one of the things that I would really enjoy diving into, which is what's this idea of nonlinear career paths in the age of AI and technology. Uh, if you, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting to see how many people are leaving traditional career paths and delving into the world of starting their own things. But I'm sure you can give me more insight into it.
Yeah, of course. So, like, the idea behind the newsletter is indeed to show um, how people are transitioning, how do they make these transitions from tech, not into tech, which is, I think, kind of the default pattern has been so far. And moreover, traditionally, when we think about people who are living tech career, typically it was consulting, right? I built my big career at some big company, and then I launch courses, trainings, and do some consulting work. And I think based from what I see, it started shifting towards becoming a builder yourself, towards finding an area, finding a topic that is defensible in the age of AI. Because what we'll see in the next 8 to 12 months, I'm being realistic here, maybe even faster, is huge compression of career paths, especially for junior roles, and for middle management, right? Like we already see that teams are becoming linear. Like it doesn't require 20 to 30 people now to build stuff. You can build solo basically, right? You can build with 2 people maximum, and it means that our traditional career path, the way we thought about it, the way I thought about that when I started my career about like 15 years ago, will disappear, will like shift into something else, will transform. So the newsletter for me is to observe, learn, and share like this transformation, living it inside out. So that's pretty much it.
So it's interesting to think of it as your newsletter is your own personal non-linear career path,
Yes.
which is cool. And one of the things that I wanted to, that sounded interesting to me is this idea of defensible careers, like defensible things that people are starting to do. What do you mean by that? What does that refer to?
It's a great question. So let's think about that way. With AI, people, companies, teams received great capabilities. You can ship things much faster. You can eliminate certain roles and jobs. Think about like content creation or repetitive like analysis of the market. AI already does that much better than a small team of analysts in the majority of cases. Moving forward, as AI develops and as AGI develops, we'll see more of that. So then the question is, where should I work? Where should I put my effort in order to stay in this market? Because despite some like semi-optimistic early researches about the number of roles actually growing, I think over the like mid-term to long-term, we'll see compression of labor. And then the question is like, okay, where should I put my effort? Where should I stay? Which area should I prioritize in order to stay competitive, in order to stay in this market? And I think there are at least like 4 of those. The first one is everything that is related to data. Like data is the key. It has been the key for quite a long time, and it's still really challenging, and I know that firsthand, really challenging to find a reliable provider who would be able to produce like the data on your demand, really like deep dive market analysis. So that's number 1. Number 2 is everything that is related to physical world. So physical health, physical well-being, physical connection. Number 3 is those jobs, those roles where someone needs to take responsibility. So let's say like representing people in court. And number 4 is everything that is related to connection and to relationship. It's already the epidemic of loneliness with AI, with this like disruption of stable organizations. I think we'll see more of that. So everything that is related, and maybe like podcasts is actually like one of those areas.
Which one? Sorry?
Relationship and connection.
Yeah.
Podcasts, I believe will stay and will rise. We already see the rise of podcasts popularity. So
I hope so, and I hope mine is one of the ones that remains. Actually, today I was listening to another podcast because a lot of the time I spend not recording podcasts or doing my main job is spent still listening to them, and they were citing a stat that sounded pretty interesting. That is, most podcasts don't go past episode 3, meaning like only 10% of podcasts go past episode 3, and of the remaining 10% that make it past it, 90% don't record more than 20 episodes. So
this is insane.
yeah, I mean, when I thought about it, it was like, okay, so that means if I release 21 episodes, I'm already in the 1th percentile of the most successful podcasters in the world.
Which is really encouraging.
I mean, it's encouraging, but at the same time, it talks to the idea that like nowadays the bar in so many ways is set so low for so many things. Yesterday I was also listening to this other thing, and there was this person saying like that it's really not as difficult as people think to start your own business and succeed in it. Of course, I'm speaking from like lack of success in my podcast, which I know is not going to come anytime soon. I'm doing this like for my own self-amusement. I hope I enrich some people's lives on the way, and maybe eventually at some point in the long term, I'm gonna have like a huge audience, and people are gonna come back to this podcast and listen to us. But yeah, I think it's a matter of diving down on consistency. And
yeah,
it speaks a lot to like the things you're mentioning, which are like, what are the areas on which people are gonna begin to shift and succeed in, and like find alternative work. Because I agree with you. I think we're in a very disruptive time. I shift a lot from thinking, okay, it's probably not going to be as bad as I think, and okay, I give it 5 years for most people to be like trying to figure out what to do as a profession. Still unsure. I think no one is entirely sure about what's going to happen, but I do see a shift and a trend, especially in what you're saying. I think there's a lot of junior roles that are little by little hiring less and less. And also, well, I'm not as aware for middle managers, but maybe you can dive deep into, you mentioned those two like focus of junior roles and middle managers. Why is it that those are the ones that are more likely to seek this alternative and non-linear career paths?
Yeah, so with junior roles, it's pretty clear, right? Like junior AI already can do, AI agents already can do the majority of work the junior role would do, whether it's like developer or analyst or project manager or program manager. All the like simple execution tasks are already kind of like shifted to AI capabilities. As for middle management, think about that way. If teams become lean, you probably don't need to manage so many cross-functional stakeholders, which is like the typical job of middle manager. It's people management. It's managing the stakeholders. It's aligning stakeholders. The smaller team, the smaller organization you have, the least you need those capabilities, those tasks to be done. That's why I think middle managers are at pretty much the same risk as junior roles. And like building on top of your comment, yes, we've been through the like labor displacement before. Like think like agriculture to manufacture to services, but those transitions took like 50, 100 years. AI is much faster, it's 10x faster. So we'll see that transition in like 5-10 years, maybe even faster. And I think the biggest risk here is that our social systems, the way like economic is working are not able to adapt to that speed, and that is the biggest risk. That's why I think we'll figure that out eventually. Let's believe in humanity, but in this transition period, that I believe there's gonna be a lot of turbulence.
100%. And it's something that I already spoke about in one of the previous episodes. I was speaking with my brother-in-law. He works in finance, and he once had this conversation with one of the heads, or I think chief technology officer of BlackRock for the fixed income division. And he told me that his discussion with him was very, well, first of all, very enlightening, but also that one of the things that he highlighted is that this AI shift that we're beginning to see, because I do believe it's only the beginning, is going to give policymakers, but more than policymakers, economists that are working in the central banks around the world, a very hard time, because for the first time ever, they're going to shift their focus in economics. And I studied economics. I remember a little bit of it. You have this exchange, this trade between inflation and employment. They believe, it's believed that they are inversely correlated. So as one increases, the other one decreases. That was the very early economic theory, at least. But let's say that most economic institutions, have been focused on keeping inflation low, because like that you can keep the people and their salaries, people affording what they need with their salaries. But what this guy was saying is, in the very near future, we might see central banks starting to focus on employment as opposed to inflation. So yeah, it's the world might be about to change, and monetary systems see a change that has never been seen in the last couple of 100 years. A part of me also thinks maybe we're overestimating the impacts of it, because at least in my job, I use a lot of AI. I'm still a junior employee, but I already use it a lot. And I do think, when I'm more senior, I would want to have someone to do this for me, as opposed to, although AI can already do many of the things that I would need a junior position to do for me. I think there's a lot of value in human connection. And as long as there are some people in the labor force, meaning people in big tech, there's still people in big tech. I think there's still going to be a desire for people to be supported by people, But that leads me to my next question, which is, you already spoke about smaller and smaller teams shipping bigger and bigger apps, startups, products. I think nowadays we can have, let's say, a team of 3 people launch an app or a startup that does revenue that you would have needed a startup of 15 or 20 people 10 years back for.
Even more, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And my question is this a shift that we're going to see across the whole tech industry? Is it likely that companies like Salesforce or Spotify, which are huge operations with a lot of developers, slowly begin to diminish in size due to AI?
100% yes. So I would answer this question in 2 parts. Part number 1 is, yes, I believe that we'll see that more of that throughout the next year. And probably, again, I'm not the single source of truth, of course, but from my perspective, given that AI impact is uneven across industries overall, across labor market overall, the tech is having the biggest exposure right now, but that would follow by finance and banking, by legal, and then probably healthcare are those industries where the regulatory and policy friction is high, but the impact is inevitable. So that's part number one. Part number two is the reason why we don't see that right now, like why not everybody is like laying off thousands of people simultaneously, is probably related to the habit formation. So as you said, yes, I use like a lot of AI, but not everybody uses a lot of AI. Not everybody has that idea that some of their work or some of the work that their team is doing could be replaced with AI. And this is like adoption problem, right? The like habit formation is generally a long process. So we have the like technology at our at our hands right now, and now we're started building that habit of using it, adopting it. The tech would go first 100%, but I think adoption overall is inevitable. Everybody will be affected by that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think the first domino to fall is going to be the tech industry because, I mean, I already see it. I think I'm not allowed to say which company I work for publicly because of the policy of the company. So I'm not going to say which company I work for, but let's say the company I work for has two divisions. Both of them are tech. I work in a tech company, but one of them is much more at the forefront, which is the one I work in, much more at the forefront of AI and tech development, while the other one is a tech company that's more like traditional tech, you know. So tech related to the real world. And what I see is me and my colleagues are already integrating AI very much into our day to day. Whilst the other day I was talking to a few people that work in this other sector of the company, and it's not nearly as much as they're not integrating it nearly as much as we are. You know, let's say they're integrating the tools that we integrated 3 months ago, or that we integrated 6 months ago, and eventually I would assume that the tools we're using now are gonna reach them, but by the time that the tools we're using now reach them, we're probably going to be using something different. What sort of all of this to say, the tech world, and especially the very advanced in AI tech world, is going to be the first one to adapt. Organizations are going to get leaner. I do think that. I mean, we're already seeing it. There's a lot of companies in the tech world, you could say Google, Meta, etc., which have not been increasing their labor force, but their financial statements do continue to grow and grow over time, and perhaps they have been doing some layoffs. And I think it's the first time, this is unprecedented, for a company to fire people whilst growing, which means they don't need as many people as they used to need. And what scares me is the first domino to fall will be tech. By the time we get to other industries like banking, legal, healthcare, the technology might be advanced enough that the integration, the pace at which we do the integration, it's much, much faster. Right now, the way we adopt it is very limited by the pace of development of the technology. But by the time it reaches those other industries, I believe the technology will already be advanced enough that it can just completely displace the whole work, or maybe not the whole workforce, but a very, very big portion of it. So I'm very curious to see how it's going to develop. Do you think, this leads me to a bit of a different topic. Do you think LLMs are going to be the technology that will lead to AGI? Because what we've been seeing is this AI labs continue to release bigger and bigger and better models under their very particular metrics that they use to measure them. But it seems like after they released GPT 3.0, which was, I think, like the very, very big leap, or 2.0, I cannot remember. I think it was 3.0. They continue to get better, without a doubt, but I don't think there has been a very big leap in performance ever since then, like there was back then.
Yeah, definitely it was a jump, but I would be cautious to say that we probably don't see the full picture. Like 100%, we don't see the full picture.
Definitely.
So the most advanced technology is not available to us through the subscription to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. So there's definitely development in that area. As for AGI, I'm like a big believer that on the horizon of 2 years, we'll see the first like reliable AGI product. If you see the number of like startups per area, the number of startups in AGI is booming right now. So once the technology, once the software is available to you, the next level is physical world, is AGI world, and the number of startups and companies that actually some of them were like pivoted from doing the like very thin layer on top of the LLM model to address the like physical part of the equation, physical problem, which is in general cool. But I think the reason why the development would be slower in that area is that the hardware cycle, like build cycle, is in general is slower than the software one, at least for now. So we'll definitely see more of that in the coming year or two. I think, yeah, so that would be the next big milestone in this AI displacement, in this like labor market transformation.
Yeah, and we are seeing a lot of companies or startups begin to develop in this like idea of the world models, which is interesting because
yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you already have pretty relatively capable robots. I don't know if you've seen the robot of this Norwegian startup called XAI. You probably have. It was, I think it became super viral in social media a few weeks back, few months back. And what's very interesting about it is that it's a robot that you can reserve already for like $20,000, I think, something along the lines. It will help. It's basically like a house cleaner, like it does all of your different house tasks. The caveat is that, of course, the hardware is developed, but the models used for the robot to work are not yet existent, because it's very difficult for the robot to like see a dirty plate and say, okay, I have to put that in the dishwasher, or I need to wash it. So in order for those to become usable and actually the technology to be able to be distributed properly, they need to first train the models. So I think initially, if you reserve one of these robots, they will ship it to you. But the big issue is that given the robot doesn't really know how to do anything on its own, there's, I think, a person probably in India or like somewhere where there's like cheaper labor, seeing a recording, like a live recording of your house, and kind of teach, like navigating the robot to do the different things that it would need to do. So and this is what I mean,
orchestrators.
Yes.
Orchestrators. Yeah,
and
I think that's sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is what we're seeing in like most of these robotics things. That's exactly how Tesla started training their model for like self-driving cars, which was okay, the car is like has self-driving capabilities, but at the same time they needed the driver to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
all times in order for like the car to be trained on the data of like this is how the drivers drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a long-term bet that different startup, different companies are doing on this idea of physical AI, which
Mm-hmm.
I do believe we're still quite a few years away from arriving to. Um,
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But
but
yeah, I mean, like the world of orchestrators is probably our like next transition period we'll be living in. Um, I always like share this perception of like when people ask me why I left Stripe, I always respond that I believe that maybe in a year like the profession of product manager, the way we know it, won't exist. We'll all become builders or orchestrators without any like a particular label or tag on you. So instead of product manager, I would probably be product builder. Instead of like software engineer, they would probably also be product builder. And some of us would be product orchestrator. And that's what will happen with AGI as well, right? First, there will be like people orchestrators, and after that, who knows? Probably yeah, that like orchestrator role would also be diminished or displaced completely.
Interesting. Uh, why did you decide to leave Stripe to do something non-tech related? I think it's a great moment to be in the tech world. Um,
I mean, like um, first, the speed with which you can release your like software products is enormous. I could probably do that myself, and I do believe that currently, in the current like, situation, working at a startup is probably more beneficial because you're moving faster, the team is lean, you by the nature of startup when like a lot of processes are and parts of the product are outsourced, you have like greatest exposure to all the technologies available to you rather than being in like enterprise, which is smaller by default, slower by default. So that's number one. Number two is that basically, if that future of like big labor displacement happens overnight, I would love to have something else in my life, more stable, less exposed to this massive transformation. That's pretty much the reason.
okay, so you think it's a matter of having something that's depends on you as opposed to like depending on a bigger company that in the end I think there's a lot of benefits from working in the corporate world, but
Absolutely,
we
100%.
but people working in corporate world are just a number, you know. um if they don't need you in the future, I'm sure they're not going to have any trouble in getting rid of you. And in the end, all of this, I think the investment into AI is the biggest investment rush there's been in the known history
Yeah,
into any technology. And technologies by nature are, sorry, investments by nature are done with a return scope. So
exactly. Yeah.
there's two possible, or the way I see it is like there's two possible ways that this investment in AI returns anything to the companies investing in it, which is one, which would be the nicer and hopefully the more hopeful one, is it allows people to be much, much more efficient, that it does for sure, which leads to companies want to hire more people because with more people they can build more things. Yeah. And that would be the very hopeful thing, for the thing I hope happens. But the other option, which is not as beautiful and not as nice to think of, is just the investment is done in the hopes that eventually companies won't need as many employees as they do now, and they're gonna take off the balance sheet one line of employment cost, and all of their cost is gonna go to tokens on AI. We already see it. I think there's this new model that Anthropic is developing called Mythos, and there was this paper released, I think yesterday. I read about it yesterday. They put it into an enterprise tech stack, and it found like many vulnerabilities for the equivalent cost of I think $50 in tokens, which is insane to think of, because companies are gonna potentially get to save a lot of money from not having to hire someone to go and do this dive deeps into the tech and a lot of other things.
Yeah, 100% exactly. And those vulnerabilities, those threats, security threats, like pretty serious, right? So it would be a very big, dangerous move to release that model publicly. And so I do really appreciate and support the initiative they started building on top of that. But that's another example of how AI is performs much better in certain areas than human. So yeah, it's very interesting.
What do you think are, other than the obvious, which is labor displacement, do you think there's any other big risk or danger from AI that we could face? I think there's a lot of chaos or a big rhetoric on the potential dangers of it, and I don't know where I stand, so I would be super interested in hearing what you think about it.
It's interesting. In general, I am optimist, so I do believe in the best possible scenario. I don't like to project all the negative scenarios, but 100% there will be certain side effects from labor displacement, right? This greatest recession, in general, less stable world in terms of psychological perception, how you see yourself. Often people identify themselves by their title, and if I don't possess this title, what is my identity? How to reconstruct, reconfigure, refine myself in this world. So a lot of I think fundamental areas of humanity would be affected one way or another. This epidemic of loneliness and lack of stable connections and relationship is already affecting the world. There's a number of startups that are based on around the idea to connect people, to talk with strangers, to have dinners with strangers. And I think on the not that bright side, but interesting side, currently we are in the era of attention. So attention, your time, is a currency. The next era would be, from my perspective, would be the era of trust. I would go to a dinner with strangers only if the person who organizes that dinner is the person I trust to, so that I can at least build that basic trust and go to that dinner. Same for like content consumption, right? We see that, for example, the number of lovable projects is exploding, right? There's like now more than, I believe, 25 million or something projects like that. But which of those I would use, which of those are distributed to me, and how to cut the noise in all of that era of vibe coded projects. I would follow the recommendations from people I trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next currency after attention, I think, would be trust, and this is very, very interesting.
That sounds interesting. It's something I had never thought about. I think it's a very original thought and idea, which is, of course, trust and attention go hand in hand, you know, like whichever app, software, service you trust, that's where your attention goes. That's where you spend time. In the end, the most we go back to the roots of everything. Like the most relevant thing we have as humans is not money, or is not, it's our time. And whichever way we choose to spend our time is, well, we're basically giving our life onto something, you know. And I think, given the nature of how easy it is to develop something nowadays, I would agree, which is, which of these alternatives or which of these options I have do I trust the most to either give me the results I need, or yeah, I agree. And I think it's a lot about marketing. As usual, I think marketing and the way you position your alternative, your solution, is extremely important. Yeah, because there's gonna be so many alternatives.
Exactly,
There's
it's already too much, right? It's already too much. So how do you pick what you consume, how you spend your time, with whom you spend your time? Most of us currently rely on algorithms, but I think moving forward in future, we'll rely more and more on communities.
for sure, I agree with that. And I think there's a big shift into like in real life things,
Yeah.
which I think is the actual real solution to this loneliness epidemic you've already mentioned a few times. My brother is starting a health and wellness business. My first podcast episode was on it, and I keep telling him the future of health and wellness is event curation and doing things in real life, where you have a platform to meet new people that are like-minded, that you enjoy their company. And because people, as much as like, I think people are getting tired little by little of social media. People are getting tired of like spending their time at home on a screen, as much as it's very like this software and like tech companies have managed to do a great job in hijacking our brains from ourselves to like keep us hooked on like that quick dopamine hit. I think more and more people are becoming conscious in the same way that like people 30 years ago became more and more conscious about smoking being bad for them, and 10 years ago about drinking not being as beneficial as they thought. I think the next revolution of consciousness, of human consciousness, is tech is a great tool, but you need to be able to leverage it properly. Otherwise, it's very harmful.
Yes, agreed.
I don't know if there's anything else that you want to speak about. I think it's been a very interesting conversation about technology, AI. Is there anything on top of your mind that you would like to kind of mention before we close out the podcast?
Probably one like closing thought. Speaking about non-linear careers, and how to like survive if in this world, in this transition. Many folks I mentor ask the same question. They ask, okay, I don't believe that I will earn money in my passion, in my hobby, like piano or building music or creating like a newsletter and stuff like that. They always answer with the same reply. I always say that money is and success is where your attention is. If you genuinely love doing something, and if you're consistent, speaking about those stats or about podcasts you shared in the beginning, you will inevitably succeed. You will find like a creative way to earn money. You will find creative way to create value, to do some valuable thing for people. So
I agree.
I would say, do not stick to that thought that money is only in tech, and without my career in tech, I would be like damn terribly screwed. No, you won't. You will be successful.
And I love what you just said, and I fully agree. And one of the things I truly do believe is, I don't think, and you did this, and I think for some people it's the right move, but I don't think you necessarily need to quit what you're already doing.
Of course.
I have a main job. This is, you could call it my hobby for the time being. If in a year from now, 2 years from now, I somehow figured out a way to make money out of this, and I make enough money, even maybe less money that I'm working on my main job, maybe I decide it's time to quit my main thing and just dedicate myself fully to my podcast. Is not I don't think it's the smartest move for me right now.
There is no silver bullet, right? You cannot follow someone else's path and be as successful as they are. Everyone has their own life, their own way, and just be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, to drive it home, just if you have a dream, you or anyone has a dream, start small, start little by little, because I think people overestimate the value of intensity. They think, oh, I need to start this now and I need to devote 10 hours a week to it. And that's honestly, for some people that have jobs, that's just way too much time, and the commitment seems too big. And there's this quote I love from Tim Ferriss, which is, in the short term, your success depends on your intensity, and in the long term, it depends on your consistency. Do not sacrifice the latter from the former. So sometimes it's about, hey, look, don't focus on like putting 15 hours this week. Focus on putting 3 hours this week, and then but 3 hours next week as well. And eventually by week 52, 1 year in, maybe you get to put 15 hours in because your side hustle became your main hustle. So I think sometimes people need to give themselves more credit. And if it's truly your passion, just go for it regardless, and try and dedicate even like a little bit of your time every day or every week.
Yes, I agree. Completely agree.
Thanks so much, Yana. Is there any place that people can go and follow your work, read your newsletter? This is your time to shine. Where should people follow you?
Thanks for that. The best way to follow me and to follow my creative writing is to subscribe to my newsletter, Beyond Linear, on Substack.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thanks so much for having me. It was like really great, interesting conversation, and see you in episode 22.
Hopefully, yes. There we will get to that one for sure.
Thank you.